I'll call security if you don't leave with that dog. The manager barked across the restaurant. The old veteran said nothing. He just reached down, gently patting the vest marked, "Service Dog." But less than 2 hours later, the entire place fell silent as a group of U.S. Marines walked in. Why did they come? And what happened next that left everyone speechless? Welcome to QH. Let's uncover what really happened. Daniel Carson was 62 years old, a retired Marine with deep-set eyes that had seen too much. His silver hair was still cut military short, and he walked with the slight limp of someone who had left pieces of himself overseas. For 8 years, his constant companion had been Rocky, a Belgian Malinois with intelligent eyes and a graying muzzle who wore a vest clearly marked "Service Dog. Do not distract." Rocky wasn't just any service dog. He helped Daniel manage his PTSD, sensing oncoming anxiety attacks before even Daniel could recognize the symptoms. The dog had been trained to apply gentle pressure against Daniel's leg when his breathing changed or his hands began to tremble. Small interventions that had prevented countless public episodes. On this particular Tuesday, Daniel entered the Blue Water Grill, a small restaurant known for its seafood specials. He requested a corner table, away from the busiest sections. Rocky settled quietly beneath the table, perfectly positioned between Daniel's feet, nearly invisible to other diners. The young waitress smiled as she brought water and a menu, but her expression changed when she noticed Rocky. Without a word, she turned and hurried toward the back office. Minutes later, a man in his 30s with a manager's badge approached the table, his face set in firm disapproval. "Sir, I'm afraid we have a strict no pets policy in our dining establishment," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Daniel looked up calmly. "Rocky isn't a pet, he's a service animal," he explained, reaching into his pocket for the official certification. The manager waved the paperwork away without looking at it. "Rules are rules. We have health codes to maintain, and other guests might not feel comfortable." From a nearby table, a woman in designer sunglasses nodded in agreement. "Exactly, a dog is a dog, military or not," she remarked to her companion, just loud enough for Daniel to hear. The atmosphere around them grew tense. Other diners pretended to focus on their meals while stealing glances at the unfolding confrontation. Daniel looked down at Rocky, who remained perfectly still, trained not to react to tension in his handler's voice. After a moment, Daniel raised his eyes to meet the manager's. "This dog pulled me from burning wreckage and stood between me and enemy fire," he said quietly. "I won't abandon him because someone finds his presence inconvenient." The manager crossed his arms. "Then you know what you need to do." Daniel slowly stood, his dignity intact despite the public humiliation. Rocky rose in perfect synchrony, maintaining his position at Daniel's side as they walked out, feeling the weight of curious stares against their backs. Outside the restaurant, an elderly couple who had witnessed the exchange hurried past Daniel, heads bowed in silent acknowledgement. The husband made brief eye contact, a flash of solidarity, but they didn't intervene. They had been taught not to make scenes. Near the entrance, a group of college students huddled together, one of them discreetly recording with his phone. "Check it out. Old guy thinks his emotional support pet is special forces or something," one snickered. "Probably another PTSD case imagining war stories." His friend laughed. "My cousin has an anxiety hamster. Maybe we should get it a little camo vest." Daniel heard the comments but kept walking, his jaw tightening. He'd faced harsher critics in Afghanistan than smartphone warriors on a sidewalk. He made his way to a park bench across the street, settling down with a view of the restaurant. From his jacket pocket, he produced a wrapped sandwich he'd bought earlier, tuna on whole wheat. With practiced movements, he broke it in half, offering a portion to Rocky. "Not what I promised you, buddy, but it'll have to do," he murmured. Rocky accepted his share gently, eating with the disciplined restraint of a working animal, eyes constantly returning to Daniel's face for cues. After a few quiet moments, Daniel reached for his wallet and carefully extracted a weathered photograph protected by clear plastic. It showed a younger Daniel on a stretcher, bloodied and half-conscious. Rocky, with fewer gray hairs then, stood vigilantly beside him, the dog's fur matted with what might have been his handler's blood. Round Rocky's neck hung the distinctive tags of Bravo Unit, K-9 Division, deployed to Afghanistan's Helmand province. The dog had been awarded commendations that some human soldiers never received. Passers-by moved around them, oblivious to the silent conversation between the man and his dog, unable to recognize the mixture of helplessness and pain reflected in Daniel's eyes. "Kicked out again, aren't we?" Daniel whispered, tucking the photo away. Rocky responded by gently placing his head on Daniel's knee, a gesture unchanged whether they were in a desert outpost or an American park. Loyalty didn't recognize geography. A young mother hurried her curious child along, whispering warnings about approaching strange men with dogs. Daniel pretended not to notice, having grown accustomed to being viewed as something between a curiosity and a threat. He checked his watch, almost time for Rocky's medication. The dog had taken shrapnel in the same blast that had damaged Daniel's leg. They shared pain management routines as they shared everything else. As they sat together, a city bus passed with an advertisement on its side. "Honor our veterans, they fought for your freedom." Daniel couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Rocky can't speak, but he saved lives, and he never abandoned his handler, whether faced with gunfire, contempt, or ridicule. If you believe a four-legged soldier deserves respect too, type ROCKY. 2 hours later, inside the Blue Water Grill, the lunch rush was beginning to thin when the door swung open. 5 men in marine dress blues entered the restaurant with military precision. They didn't look around for available tables. They didn't check the specials board. They moved in formation directly to the host station. Conversations quieted as diners noticed the uniforms. A child pointed. A businessman lowered his phone mid-call. The Marine in front, a captain with the name Macmillan on his uniform, approached the counter and produced his military identification. "I'm Captain James Macmillan, commanding officer of Bravo Unit, 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion. I'm looking for Daniel Carson and his service dog, Rocky." The manager from earlier emerged from the back office, eyes widening at the sight of the Marines. They left," he stammered, suddenly conscious of the numerous phones now recording the interaction. "A couple of hours ago." Captain Macmillan's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried throughout the now silent restaurant. "Mr. Carson saved 4 men in my unit during an ambush outside Kandahar. His dog Rocky has more confirmed saves than most combat medics. Rocky holds the rank of sergeant in our records and has been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal." He paused, letting the information sink in. "And your establishment just refused service to an American hero." No one moved. The woman who had commented about military dogs stared into her water glass, her face reddening. A waiter froze mid-step, pitcher still tilted. One of the Marines held up his phone. "We're issuing an internal notice about this incident to our veteran support network statewide. 15,000 members, just so they have all the facts about how veterans are treated here." The manager stepped forward, hands raised. "There's been a misunderstanding. We had no idea." "That's the problem, sir," Captain Macmillan interrupted. "You shouldn't need to know someone's service record to treat them with basic dignity." The Marines didn't raise their voices. They didn't demand anything be done. Captain Macmillan simply placed a framed photograph on the counter, Rocky in full tactical gear with his unit, the word brother inscribed at the bottom, before turning to leave. As they departed, diners glimpsed through the window to where Daniel and Rocky sat in an old pickup truck across the street, unaware of what had transpired. The youngest server, a college student who had watched the earlier confrontation in silence, grabbed a takeout container from behind the counter. She quickly filled it with the day's special, added a slice of pie, and hurried outside. Crossing to Daniel's truck, she held out the package with a handwritten note tucked under the string. "We were wrong. Please let us make it right." Daniel looked at her, then at the restaurant where people now crowded the windows, watching. After a moment's hesitation, he accepted the offering with a nod that contained neither forgiveness nor condemnation, just the acknowledgement that amends were being attempted. As the young server walked away, she heard him say to Rocky, "What do you think, buddy? Should we give them another chance?" The dog's tail wagged once, a soldier's measured response to a potential ceasefire. 1 week later, a new sign appeared in the Blue Water Grill's window. "We proudly welcome all veterans and their service companions. Beneath it hung a framed photo of military working dogs throughout American conflicts, from World War II to Afghanistan. The local veterans organization held a small ceremony outside the restaurant, presenting Rocky with an honorary medal inscribed, "Four-Legged Warrior, Above and Beyond." The dog sat at perfect attention throughout the proceedings, breaking position only when Daniel gave the release command. Children from a nearby elementary school had made cards thanking Daniel and Rocky for their service. One small boy approached cautiously, looking up at Daniel with wide eyes. "Does he understand when people say thank you?" the child asked, pointing to Rocky. Daniel knelt down despite his stiff leg. "He doesn't need words," he explained. "He just needs to be beside the people who remember what he's done." The restaurant manager had resigned the day after the Marine's visit, leaving a handwritten letter for the owner. "Thank you for teaching me what law books couldn't. Respect isn't about following rules, but recognizing worth in others." The owner, herself the daughter of a Vietnam veteran, instituted mandatory training for all staff about service animals and the Americans with Disabilities Act. More importantly, she arranged for local veterans to share their stories during monthly community dinners. Daniel and Rocky became regular customers, always occupying the same corner table that now bore a small American flag and a plaque reading, "Daniel and Rocky, Bravo Team, Never Forgotten." The student who had recorded the initial confrontation approached their table one evening, phone in hand but not recording. "I deleted that video," he said, shifting uncomfortably. "And I wanted to tell you that my brother just enlisted. I'd want someone to respect him if—" He trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Daniel simply offered his hand. "Then be that someone now, for others." Rocky continued his duties, still alert for signs of Daniel's PTSD, even in his advancing age. During one lunch, when a car backfired outside, causing Daniel's hands to shake violently, Rocky immediately pressed against his leg. The nearby diners pretended not to notice, not out of embarrassment, but from a newfound respect for privacy. Captain McMillan's unit deployed again 3 months later. Before leaving, they presented Daniel with a unit coin, a rare honor for non-active personnel. Daniel kept it in his pocket alongside the photograph, two reminders of brotherhood that transcended time and circumstance. On quiet evenings, Daniel and Rocky could sometimes be found on their porch, watching the sunset. Their shared silence contained volumes, memories of desert heat, exploding earth, and the peculiar sound of bullets passing too close. But it also held the knowledge that sometimes humanity remembers its obligations to those who served, even if the reminder must come in uniform. Not everyone with a uniform is a hero, but anyone who stands up for their comrade, even if it's just a dog, certainly isn't a coward. You may forget this story in a few days, but if nobody retells it, history will remain silent forever. Subscribe to Incredible Stories, where justice, kindness, and memory are protected until the end.